Welcome to the Life Self-Mastery Podcast, where we bring in entrepreneurs who have created online businesses and improved their lifestyles. Here's your host, Rohit Malhotra.
Hi everyone, I'm Rohit from lifeselfmastery.com, and today we have Aswin Shibu, who founded Sous Chef. Sous Chef aims to deliver healthy, delicious, and filling breakfast for people who don't have the time to look after themselves. Their device has processed some of the most common breakfast items from around the world automatically with minimal interaction from the user. Aswin was also a participant of Start-up Chile and is currently Director Sales APAC for FullContact. Welcome to the show, Aswin.
Thanks, Rohit. Great to be here.
Please do share your journey and how did you get into startups?
My only reason getting into a startup or wanting to become an entrepreneur was I hated to wear ties or ID cards. Back when I was in college, engineering college, I didn't want to do those things. And once I was out and all of these placements started coming in, I just figured out, hey, I do not want to be in a place where they ask me to wear an ID card or things like that. And I just wanted to be free and do things that actually have a bigger impact. So that's how I kind of decided at the end of college that I'm going to actually start a company of my own. And that's where I talked to a couple of my friends from Singapore. I was actually based out in India at the time. So I reached out to a couple of my friends and I told them, folks, hey, my university is ending. There's no way I want to work at a corporate. We should do something. We should figure it out. And that's how we started the idea of Sous Chef. So Sous Chef was born out of an idea where we wanted to save time for people. We didn't actually start off with breakfast. We started off with education, small tools for kids, electronic gadgets, things like that people could use to get their knowledge started into electronics and Arduino, Raspberry Pi, things like that. We soon evolved into creating a standalone product on its own. And that's why we decided to tackle a space where we had a lot of difficulty, a lot of people that we knew had a lot of difficulty, which was breakfast. So we set out to create a breakfast machine that could cook scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee in under 5 minutes, so that a person who wakes up, who's already on the rush, who's maybe a bit late, can go just press a button on their app, on their smartphone, get all of this food, start to prepare. And once they've finished cleaning up, they can just go start eating the food, keep everything back. The machine does all of the cleaning on its own, and then they can go back to their regular work. So this was actually something that would save a lot of time, was aimed towards working class professionals who actually do not have a lot of time and who just wanted to get something energy driven on the way.
So why did you go through the Start-up Chile program?
Once we started, being a hardware company, we needed to get a lot of budget, right? A lot of funding. But again, being out of engineering college, you are probably not going to get a lot of funding. So we reached out a lot of incubators, a lot of startup accelerators, etc. in Singapore, across the world, Hacks in Singapore, Accelerator in Shenzhen, the Food Tech in Barcelona, Techstars, all of these programs, and Start-up Chile, Start-up Brazil, all of these places. Because if you're a startup who's not got a lot of cred, a very good place for you to start rather than raising funds is to go through an incubator or an accelerator, provided you have some traction. At that point of time, we had created our own MVP. We started showing it to a couple of places here and there. We actually had a small commit from a small accelerator in Singapore, but Start-up Chile, we had applied long back with our prototype, with a lot of videos, with a lot of our content and what we were planning to be. And when Start-up Chile's option came, we decided, hey, we need to get to a place where there's a lot of exposure, where a program has a lot of roots. I think Start-up Chile is like the largest entrepreneurial ecosystem in the world right now. And for us, that meant there was a lot more people who could help us grow. So we decided, hey, let's go and try out Start-up Chile. Let's figure out if we can stay in Chile and also sell to the US, because US was going to be like a predominant market for us. So those are like some of the reasons we decided to go there.
Somebody who wants to build a startup, so what is the best way they can get through Start-up Chile? Are they just supposed to fill up the application, or what is the process?
Back when we did it, it was a lot more easier. Start-up Chile had just one platform or one single way through which you could do it. But right now, I think Start-up Chile has 3 or 4 different sectors. Like, is it bioengineering? Is it solar related? Is it different types of technology sectors that they divide it into? And also things like if there's a female entrepreneur, then there's also a separate program through Start-up Chile. So at the heart of it, your application matters a lot. The application is a bit long. They ask a lot of questions. The application plus there is a video interview where you have to talk a lot about you are, why you deserve a slot, etc. But at the end of the day, Startup Chile also relies on its entrepreneurial network. So, for example, if you reached out to past entrepreneurs from Startup Chile, and if they can vouch for you and if they can put in a recommendation for you, that goes a long way into you getting accepted.
And is my company supposed to be incorporated, or do I need to have at least an MVP before I go through Startup Chile?
When we had applied to the program, there was not a requirement for incorporation, but the MVP was something that they always asked for.
How long was the experience, and did you have to be in Chile along with the other teammates?
So the requirements of the program is that at least one person from the team has to be in Chile during the duration of the program. The program is about 6 months. And there's also something that Startup Chile makes you do, which is to go out and also help the Chilean economy. So go to schools, colleges, speak to entrepreneurs, coach them, etc., so that their ecosystem can also grow along with this exposure. So we call them community hours or something like that. So we used to do that as well. The program was for 6 months, and I think overall they were very flexible with travel. So for example, I had to travel to India once. I had to travel to the US in between just to go and pitch to the next set of investors and accelerators, things like that. So they were very generous with helping us connect with other people, reach out to different networks, investors, things like that. So I would say if you're a startup, and it's also equity, right? So it's actually a very good place for a startup which is not in the growth stage, but something like the pre-growth stage where they're still figuring out things that we need to do and finally get that product market fit. So I think Startup Chile is a place if you're in that position.
So is it like an incubator or an accelerator where you take away some sort of an equity for being part of the program?
That's an interesting question because they call themselves the Startup Chile Accelerator. And accelerator is something that gets you in, and you have to go through the stage. You have to be at the stage, and they give you a lot of resources, things like that. Startup Chile is not that place where they'll spoon feed you, or they'll go around you and then force you to work or get those things done. Startup Chile is more a place where if you want things done, you can absolutely do it. Like they've got the best network out there of people who can help you do it. If South America is a target market for you, again, this is one of the best programs for you to get your foot into. And all of those things are pretty good, but I felt that this program was a bit more laid back. So I would not call it a fully accelerator sort, but a mix of both accelerator plus incubator. Plus they don't take any equity, so there's that.
One of the posts you mentioned that the people from Y Combinator, some people who for 3 Fellowship. So how did Startup Chile help you, or did it help you build a brand?
So I think what Startup Chile helped me do at that stage, and personally what it did for me was I leveraged a lot of connections at Techstars, at Accelerator, at a couple of the Y Combinator startups who either have been to the Startup Chile program or have alumni or somehow related to this program. And the folks there were very generous, they were very helpful. They just connected me right away with all of these people. So it got me connected to a lot of the folks that I wanted to be connected to. And that just gave us a lot of exposure in actually setting up a meeting. Going out to any program out there and saying, hey, we are actually Startup Chile incubated or accelerated, gives you some amount of credit. People are just going to stop and take notice. And, that's actually nice. That was actually a great foot in the door for us for a lot of meetings. It did help us with a lot of meetings. A lot of people vouched for us, things like that. Unfortunately, at that time, our product did not really have a full product market fit. So we couldn't take full advantage of that and go into our next round or get into another accelerator.
So let's talk about Sous Chef. What were your revenue numbers and how long did you run the company?
We ran the company for about a year. It was actually pre-revenue because we hadn't launched our product as yet. But the hardware tool that we were planning to launch was supposed to be in a range of about $700 to buy with IoT connections, and you get an app to use with it. So we didn't actually create any revenue from the product. But initially, to sustain ourselves, we had actually done a lot of services. So that would be like going to schools, engineering colleges, etc., and taking these courses, things like that. So those were just rudimentary, just for our survival, just so that we could bootstrap more. So again, whatever services we did, we took all of the revenue from that and fed it back into the product. So not a lot of revenue there.
So you shut shop when you realized that, there's no product market fit.
Yep. So we came to that conclusion that product market fit for this particular product is not there. And we decided, hey, we're going to have to wind this down. And it was around that time that I had reached out to a couple of my friends, talked to a few folks back here in India, and they said, hey, we've got a small team, 10-member team here. We are working with data. We're in the B2B SaaS space. We know that's a huge change. Nobody moves from hardware to SaaS without some shock. But they told me, hey, we've got a pretty good crew. We've got some very good investors. Do you want to join? So that was actually Profundis. And I said, hey, cool. That actually sounds interesting. I got back to India, had a couple of calls before I got back, and I think I joined the company the day I was actually in India. And we just, I remember my first day was actually an interview spree. We were actually going on an interview to hire more people. And that's how I started with Profundis. An interesting thing to note was I didn't actually have a specific role. I was just floating around because we couldn't find, so I was the first non-engineering hire into the team outside of the founders. So we didn't really have an exact position. So I just started off doing a lot of customer support, handling a lot of tickets. And from there, I started into marketing, growth hacking, a lot of things that Quora, blogs, a lot of Facebook Medium posts, things like that, all of those things to get the traffic up. And from there, I kind of transitioned from that B2C marketing role towards a B2B sales role.
Interesting. So what was Profundis and how long were you there? How did you move from Profundis to FullContact?
So Profundis is, to give you some background, Profundis is a data company. So we actually help sales and marketing folks get the right data about contacts so they could either personalize their campaigns and messaging and also reach out to new businesses to sell better. I was at Profundis, so I think I joined sometime in October or something of 2015, I'm sorry. And from there, as I said, so I started doing a lot of customer support, a lot of product marketing, a lot of growth hacking, etc. By early 2016, I kind of transitioned to a B2B sales role. So Profundis had a B2C offering as well as a B2B offering, and I started taking advantage of our B2B offering and started a lot of very specific outbound sales campaigns. That's when we started to actually generate a lot of revenue from our APIs, from our data services wing that we had. And I think I moved away from a marketing role towards a sales role, figured out a lot of things, did a lot of the groundwork in establishing a team. So we scaled from a 0-member sales team to 5-member with 4 people reporting directly to me. And I think by the mid of 2016, we were able to generate about $250,000 in ARR. And it was around that time that FullContact came in and said, hey folks, this looks interesting. What you guys are doing kind of has good synergy with what we are trying to accomplish. I think there's a good model that we can work together. And the CEO from FullContact reached out to our CEO, and then they start talking. We start doing a lot of projects internally, and finally they said, "Hey, this looks like we need to have a stronger relationship," and that's how the acquisition talks happen.
FullContact has a great culture out there and consistently gets voted as one of the best companies to work for. So how's the culture at FullContact and what is your role over there?
One of those things that we had at Profundis was we were a very small team. Even I think during the acquisition, we were about 40, 50 people. So culture was something that we valued a lot. So we were not a corporate as such. We never wanted to be a corporate environment where people don't know each other. People, just come in 9 to 5 and get out, things like that. So we wanted to be a culture where we help people grow, right? So there were a lot of programs, a lot of skill development courses, or even just gatherings where people would just share information, have birthday parties, all of those kind of things that would actually help the team actually gel quite a bit. So once we got acquired by FullContact, that's also one of those things that we were also a bit nervous about. But actually, the leadership team from FullContact came down and we had a long discussion about culture, about values. Like you said, FullContact has been on the list of great places to work for at least the last few years. And one of the reasons for that is because the leadership themselves have a very strong value for core values in the company. So, the number one motto that we have is we are awesome with people. And we kind of take that to heart, right? So every employee in FullContact thinks that we are awesome with people. We are awesome with our teammates. We are awesome with customers. We are awesome with everybody that we know. We just have that belief that we are here to help people. And because of that, every day in the office, everybody comes in, everybody's in a good mood. Everybody wants to talk with people, help people out. And that kind of translates into everything that we do. even the sales calls, even the meetings that we do. So I can speak like even the regular sales meetings that we do, we don't actually go in with an intention to, hey, can we sell something? We just say, hey, how can we help you, right? We are FullContact. We have some expertise in data. We'd love to hear how you guys are figuring things out, how we can help you. And we believe that kind of an approach where we just want to be very good with our customers, with our teammates, with our everybody around, that just brings in a very good culture.
We're running a startup and you transitioned into work in a startup. So what advice would you give to people who were running startups and who would now, would want to work in a growing startup?
I'd say tough. It's tough, right? To move away from being a decision maker, being a CEO level person towards not having that amount of control, it's always going to be tough. That's like the first thing that I can say. But my only advice or the lessons that I've learned is, go work with a great team, right? That's perhaps the only thing that I can say. Like, you need to be at a team, you need to be at a company where you can look up at people. If you're reporting to a person, that person has to inspire you. Like when I was at Sous Chef and I decided to move to Profundis, I knew that the leadership team at Profundis were killing it, right? They were genuine people. They wanted to drive a lot of good things. They still do a lot of good things. And they just work their asses off, right? So these are the kind of people that I wanted to work for. At FullContact, again, the person that I was to report to, which was the VP of Sales, Mike Brower, a couple of conversations in, and I found out, hey, this is a person, 25 years of sales experience, has been extensively at a lot of companies, knows end-to-end about sales, leadership, and management. And again, is a person who works tirelessly, gives back to the community, helps a lot of people, etc. And I decided, hey, here's another leader that I want to work with and get inspired by. And I decided, okay, I'm going to stay at FullContact because this is actually a really good person to work with. So my only learning would be, transitioning can be difficult, but you need to look at who you're working with or who you're reporting to. If that person can manage to inspire you, then I think that's all you need to look at.
Got it. So let's quickly do the top 3. What's your favorite business book?
Well, I think what has helped me the most would be Aaron Ross's Predictable Revenue. It's an absolute must read for people who are getting into or who want to increase their B2B sales. I read the book, I think, tons of times. I still have it. I give a copy of the book to every new salesperson that joins my team. I recommend it to everybody out there. So yeah, Predictable Revenue, hands down, one of the best books in sales business I've read.
And if you could go back in time when you started Sous Chef, what is the one thing you would have focused on?
Getting to product market fit much more faster, right? I think one of those things that we lacked was actually getting the product in front of people and say, hey, would you buy it? Or, what are things that you want right now? We were actually kind of in our own world when we created our product. And that kind of happens to a lot of entrepreneurs where, my sweet idea kind of thing happens. And we just stuck onto the idea for too long when we should have pivoted or when we should have changed things. So my only change, if I had gone back, would be to, figure out product market fit as soon as possible.
What's your favorite online tool, for example, Gmail or Slack?
I'm more a traditional person. I spend half my day on Salesforce. You can either say it's fortunate or unfortunate, but that's one of the tools that I spend a lot of time in. I love that Salesforce has been the number one tool for figuring out performance for salespeople. But in terms of productivity, in terms of being out there, I use Streak a lot. Streak is actually an extension on Gmail, and it does it's like a mini CRM for your inbox. I have to plug this in. I have to be shameless and say I use FullContact. FullContact is amazing if you want to know about people that actually email you. So there's a Chrome extension, you can install it and it finds out all the information about people who contact you. So yeah, FullContact as well.
What's the best way people can reach out to you?
The best way would be email. I'm almost 24/7 on email. I've always tried to make it a point to respond back to emails, except when I'm not on holidays, because that's when I completely shut off. But yeah, Ashwin@FullContact.com is the fastest way to reach me.
Got it. Thank you very much for coming on to the show, Ashwin. I really appreciate it.
Yep, absolutely, Rohit. The pleasure was all mine.
Thanks for listening to the Life Self-Mastery podcast, where we teach you how to start and grow your online business. For more information, visit Rohit's blog at www.lifeselfmastery.com.